Like many Eastern spices, pepper was historically both a seasoning and a traditional medicine. Pepper appears in the Buddhist Samannaphala Sutta, chapter 5, as one of the few medicines a monk is allowed to carry. Long pepper, being stronger, was often the preferred medication, but both were used. Black pepper, or perhaps long pepper, was believed to cure several illnesses, such as constipation, insomnia, oral abscesses, sunburn, and toothaches, among others. Various sources from the 5th century onward recommended pepper to treat eye problems, often by applying salves or poultices made with pepper directly to the eye. Though current medical research has yet to confirm any treatment benefit to humans, several benefits have been shown in animal modeling experiments. Pepper contains phytochemicals, including amides, piperidines, pyrrolidines, and trace amounts of safrole, which may be carcinogenic in laboratory rodents. Piperine is under study for its potential to increase absorption of selenium, vitamin B12, beta-carotene, and curcumin, as well as other compounds. Pepper is known to cause sneezing. Some sources say that piperine, a substance present in black pepper, irritates the nostrils, causing the sneezing. Few, if any, controlled studies have been carried out to answer the question. Piperine is also under study for a variety of possible physiological effects, although this work is preliminary and mechanisms of activity for piperine in the human body remain unknown. Black pepper is a flowering vine in the family Piperaceae, cultivated for its fruit, known as a peppercorn, which is usually dried and used as a spice and seasoning. The fruit is a drupe which is about 5 mm in diameter, dark red, and contains a stone which encloses a single pepper seed. Peppercorns and the ground pepper derived from them may be described simply as pepper, or more precisely as black pepper, cooked and dried unripe fruit, green pepper, dried unripe fruit, or white pepper, ripe fruit seeds. Black pepper is native to the Malabar coast of India, and the Malabar pepper is extensively cultivated there and in other tropical regions. Ground, dried, and cooked peppercorns have been used since antiquity, both for flavor and as a traditional medicine. Black pepper is the world's most traded spice, and is one of the most common spices added to cuisines around the world. Its spiciness is due to the chemical compound piperine, which is a different kind of spicy from the capsaicin characteristic of chili peppers. It is ubiquitous in the Western world as a seasoning, and is often paired with salt and available on dining tables in shakers or mills. Pepper gets its spicy heat mostly from piperine derived from both the outer fruit and the seed. Black pepper contains between 4.6 and 9.7% piperine by mass, and white pepper slightly more than that. Refined piperine, by weight, is about 1% as hot as the capsaicin found in chili peppers. The outer fruit layer, left on black pepper, also contains aroma-contributing terpenes, including germacrine 11%, limonene 10%, pinene 10%, alpha-phellandrine 9%, and beta-caryophyllene 7%, which gives citrusy, woody, and floral notes. These scents are mostly missing in white pepper, as the fermentation and other processing removes the fruit layer, which also contains some of the spicy piperine. Other flavors also commonly develop in this process, some of which are described as off flavors when in excess, primarily 3-methylindole, pig manure-like, 4-methylphenol, horse manure, 3-methylphenol, phenolic, and butyric acid, cheese. The aroma of pepper is attributed to rhodindone 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-hexahydro3-alpha, 8-alpha-dimethyl-5-alpha, 1-methylethanol, azulene 1, 2-H1, a sesquiterpene originally discovered in the tubers of Cyperus rhodindus, which can be detected in concentrations of 0.4 nanograms L in water and in wine. Rhodindone is also present in marjoram, oregano, rosemary, basil, thyme, and geranium, as well as in some Shiraz wines. Pepper loses flavor and aroma through evaporation, so airtight storage helps preserve its spiciness longer. Pepper can also lose flavor when exposed to light, which can transform piperine into nearly tasteless isochavicine. Once ground, pepper's aromatics can evaporate quickly. Most culinary sources recommend grinding whole peppercorns immediately before use for this reason. Handheld pepper mills or grinders, which mechanically grind or crush whole peppercorns, are used for this as an alternative to pepper shakers that dispense ground pepper. Spice mills such as pepper mills were found in European kitchens as early as the 14th century, but the mortar and pestle used earlier for crushing pepper have remained a popular method for centuries, as well. enhancing the flavor profile of peppercorns, including piperine and essential oils, prior to processing, has been attempted through the post-harvest application of ultraviolet C light, UVC. Black pepper is native to South Asia and Southeast Asia, and has been known to Indian cooking since at least 2000 BCE. Ines Miller notes that while pepper was grown in southern Thailand and in Malaysia, its most important source was India, particularly the Malabar coast, in what is now the state of Kerala. The lost ancient port city of Muziris in Kerala, famous for exporting black pepper and various other spices, gets mentioned in a number of classical historical sources for its trade with Roman Empire, Egypt, Mesopotamia, Levant, and Yemen. Peppercorns were a much prized trade good, often referred to as black gold, and used as a form of commodity money. The legacy of this trade remains in some Western legal systems that recognize the term peppercorn rent as a token payment for something that is, essentially, a gift. The ancient history of black pepper is often interlinked with, and confused with, that of long pepper, the dried fruit of closely related Piper longum. The Romans knew of both and often referred to either as just piper. In fact, the popularity of long pepper did not entirely decline until the discovery of the New World and of chili peppers. Chili peppers, some of which, when dried, are similar in shape and taste to long pepper, were easier to grow in a variety of locations more convenient to Europe. Before the 16th century, pepper was being grown in Java, Sunda, Sumatra, Madagascar, Malaysia, and everywhere in Southeast Asia. These areas traded mainly with China, or used the pepper locally. Ports in the Malabar area also served as a stop-off point for much of the trade in other spices from farther east in the Indian Ocean. Black peppercorns were found stuffed in the nostrils of Ramesses II, placed there as part of the mummification rituals shortly after his death in 1213 BCE. Little else is known about the use of pepper in ancient Egypt and how it reached the Nile from the Malabar coast of South Asia. Pepper, both long and black, was known in Greece at least as early as the 4th century BCE, though it was probably an uncommon and expensive item that only the very rich could afford. By the time of the early Roman Empire, especially after Rome's conquest of Egypt in 30 BCE, open ocean crossing of the Arabian Sea direct to Shera dynasty's southern India's Malabar coast was near routine. Details of this trading across the Indian Ocean have been passed down in the periplus of the Erythraean Sea. According to the Greek geographer Strabo, the early empire sent a fleet of around 120 ships on an annual trip to India and back. The fleet timed its travel across the Arabian Sea to take advantage of the predictable monsoon winds. Returning from India, the ships traveled up the Red Sea, from where the cargo was carried overland or via the Nile-Red Sea Canal to the Nile River, barged to Alexandria, and shipped from there to Italy and Rome. The rough geographical outlines of this same trade route would dominate the pepper trade into Europe for a millennium and a half to come. With ships sailing directly to the Malabar coast, Malabar black pepper was now traveling a shorter trade route than long pepper, and the prices reflected it. Pliny the Elder's natural history tells us the prices in Rome around 77 CE. Long pepper is 15 denarii per pound, while that of white pepper is 7, and a black, 4. Black pepper was a well-known and widespread, if expensive, seasoning in the Roman Empire. Apicius de Re Coquinaria, a 3rd century cookbook probably based at least partly on one from the 1st century CE, includes pepper in a majority of its recipes. Edward Gibbon wrote, in the history of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, that pepper was a favorite ingredient of the most expensive Roman cookery. Pepper was so valuable that it was often used as collateral or even currency. The taste for pepper, or the appreciation of its monetary value, was passed on to those who would see Rome fall. Alaric, king of the Visigoths, included 3,000 pounds of pepper as part of the ransom he demanded from Rome when he besieged the city in the 5th century. After the fall of Rome, others took over the middle legs of the spice trade, first the Persians and then the Arabs. Ines Miller cites the account of Cosmas Indicopleustes, who traveled east to India, as proof that pepper was still being exported from India in the 6th century. By the end of the early Middle Ages, the central portions of the spice trade were firmly under Islamic control. Once into the Mediterranean, the trade was largely monopolized by Italian powers, especially Venice and Genoa. The rise of these city-states was funded in large part by the spice trade. It is commonly believed that during the Middle Ages, pepper was often used to conceal the taste of partially rotten meat. No evidence supports this claim, and historians view it as highly unlikely. In the Middle Ages, pepper was a luxury item, affordable only to the wealthy, who certainly had unspoiled meat available, as well. In addition, people of the time certainly knew that eating spoiled food would make them sick. Similarly, the belief that pepper was widely used as a preservative is questionable. It is true that piperine, the compound that gives pepper its spiciness, has some antimicrobial properties, but at the concentrations present when pepper is used as a spice, the effect is small. Salt is a much more effective preservative, and salt-cured meats were common fare, especially in winter. However, pepper and other spices certainly played a role in improving the taste of long-preserved meats. Its exorbitant price during the Middle Ages, and the monopoly on the trade held by Italy, was one of the inducements that led the Portuguese to seek a sea route to India. In 1498, Vasco da Gama became the first person to reach India by sailing around Africa, Sea Age of Discovery. Asked by Arabs in Calicut, who spoke Spanish and Italian, why they had come, his representative replied, "We seek Christians and spices." Though this first trip to India by way of the southern tip of Africa was only a modest success, the Portuguese quickly returned in greater numbers and eventually gained much greater control of trade on the Arabian Sea. The 1494 Treaty of Tordesillas with the Spanish granted Portugal exclusive rights to the half of the world where black pepper originated. However, the Portuguese proved unable to monopolize the spice trade. Older Arab and Venetian trade networks successfully imported enormous quantities of spices, and pepper once again flowed through Alexandria and Italy, as well as around Africa. In the 17th century, the Portuguese lost almost all of their valuable Indian Ocean trade to the Dutch and the English, who, taking advantage of the Spanish rule over Portugal during the Iberian Union, 1580-1640, occupied by force almost all Portuguese interests in the area. The pepper ports of Malabar began to trade increasingly with the Dutch in the period 1661-1663. As pepper supplies into Europe increased, the price of pepper declined, though the total value of the import trade generally did not. Pepper, which in the early Middle Ages had been an item exclusively for the rich, started to become more of an everyday seasoning among those of more average means. Today, pepper accounts for 1/5 of the world's spice trade. It is possible that black pepper was known in China in the 2nd century BCE, if poetic reports regarding an explorer named Tang Meng are correct. Sent by Emperor Wu to what is now southwest China, Tang Meng is said to have come across something called zhujiang or sauce beetle. He was told it came from the markets of Shu, an area in what is now the Sichuan province. The traditional view among historians is that sauce beetle is a sauce made from beetle leaves, but arguments have been made that it actually refers to pepper, either long or black. In the 3rd century CE, black pepper made its first definite appearance in Chinese texts, as hujiao or foreign pepper. It does not appear to have been widely known at the time, failing to appear in a 4th century work describing a wide variety of spices from beyond China's southern border, including long pepper. By the 12th century, however, black pepper had become a popular ingredient in the cuisine of the wealthy and powerful, sometimes taking the place of China's native Sichuan pepper, the tongue-numbing dried fruit of an unrelated plant. Marco Polo testifies to pepper's popularity in 13th century China, when he relates what he is told of its consumption in the city of Qinsei, Hangzhou. Messer Marco heard it stated by one of the Great Khan's officers of customs that the quantity of pepper introduced daily for consumption into the city of Qinsei amounted to 43 loads, each load being equal to 223 pounds. During the course of the Ming treasure voyages in the early 15th century, Admiral Zheng He and his expeditionary fleets returned with such a large amount of black pepper that the once costly luxury became a common commodity.